girls, welcome to your life sciences lesson on a Wednesday. I am Looney, and with me is Aslam.
Awesome.
Without the entourage today, without your peoples. Where are your peoples?
Now what I'm going to do, who's going to answer for me?
Who's going to answer your question?
You will have to answer.
No.
It's your turn today.
What are we doing for the Great House today?
Today we're doing human impact on the environment. That means what you are doing to the environment, what I'm doing from the environment, and what all those learners out there are doing to the environment.
All right. Mindsetters, I hope you guys are excited for your lesson. I'll post all the information that you need for today's lesson, your show notes, and the competition details on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/learnextra. Our Twitter handle is @learnextra, and you can get all the show notes, the videos, and the schedules on learn.mindset.co.za. And if you want to win yourself an awesome Cassie calculator, all you need to do is go to the Facebook page. There's a Taste Yourself link there. You click on the link, complete all the answers, you submit your entry, and you'll stand a chance to win a Cassie calculator. We also have another competition. We want you to get connected. And the man himself is here, so I can now make an example because you are here. So I want you to vote for your favorite teachers, guys. And obviously, we love Aslam, so we're going to vote for Aslam. All the information for the Get Connected competition is on our Facebook page. All you need to do is go to the link that sends you to Curio. Then you enter Learn. You pick your favorite teacher, Aslam. Then you go back to the Facebook page. There are links there with all your favorite teachers. Then you go to /Aslam. That link will take you to Aslam's picture, and then you like that picture. Once you've done that, you go back to the competition graphic, and then you share that post to all your friends and tell them to enter the competition. All those people who've shared the competition graphic will stand a chance to win Vodacom airtime. And then all those people who've liked Aslam's picture, and Aslam's going to get the most likes because he's our favorite teacher, will stand a chance to win a Sony Xperia L. I was just going
Xperia,
Aslam. Yes.
Eish.
Awesome phone, hey?
Awesome phone, awesome
Yes.
phone.
Lesson.
All to me.
Thank you.
Good, guys. You better post that link quickly, guys. We're talking about environment, and this is something that you've done last year. Now, in some schools, teacher may tell you, you know what, guys, we did this last year, or your teacher did this last year, so you'd read it on your own. And it's important that we do it together again so that you know what is going on. But at the same time, having said that, this section I just explained to some learners that I had yesterday, that this section lends itself to so much of common sense and logic and so much of current affairs that we see every day in every newspaper or on TV news, etc., regularly. So it's something that you should be at this age, in this year, especially in this era, you should be conversant about it. So don't panic that even if you haven't done it in school, because it's something easy that you can read. I'm going to try and show you the easiest way to put this little this sections, as we've been done in others, put it into packets. So what do we actually need to know? We need to know in terms of the first part, and I'm going to break that up into the first part as well. Let's see how far we go. All right, from here, all of this, all of that, going down, all right up to down, yeah, it's quite a bit, all right up to there, right? So up to that bullet, all of that is dealing with the atmosphere and climate change. What is happening to the climate? Why is the climate changing? How is it changing? And so on. And what are those things that we are talking about? We are talking about the greenhouse effect as one of those climate change stories there, and the atmosphere. We're talking about the sources of carbon dioxide emissions and methane emissions, which lead to this greenhouse effect. Also, we must keep in mind the difference between the natural greenhouse effect and the enhanced greenhouse effect. We'll talk about that a little later. Also, deforestation and how that leads to more carbon dioxide in the environment. There's the enhanced greenhouse effect we're talking about. How does that greenhouse effect now and the greenhouse gases lead to this condition that we call global warming? Okay? Notice everything is dealing with the atmosphere and climate change. And how global warming now, notice we're saying we started with the greenhouse gases. From there we went to global warming. From there we're talking about how global warming leads to desertification, drought and floods. Also, what do we mean by our carbon footprint? And how you and I, Looney, and the rest of us all can reduce our carbon footprint on this planet. Last but not least, display the causes and consequences of ozone depletion, and again, how you and I can decrease that. This section has emphasis in grade 11 and 12 for the simple reason, guys, is to educate ourselves of the importance of these things so that we can start living better. When I say living better, I mean living so that our lifestyles leads to sustainable use of natural resources. Good. Thereafter, now look, that was the first part. So atmosphere and climate change. The next part deals with water. Up to yeah, all of that. So one is we're talking about the availability of water. Secondly, we're talking about water quality. Thirdly, how water quality can be increased through water purification. So it's linked to water quality. Then we go to this topic here, food security. So that's the third one. The fourth one here, biodiversity. And what happens when biodiversity is being lost, loss of biodiversity. The fourth one, that's all that there. The fourth one, we deal with solid waste. What is solid waste and how can we reduce our solid waste, on how we can treat the solid waste. So that is basically what you need to know. So again, just to recap, one is climate change. Second is availability of water. Third is quality of water. Fourth is food security. Fifth is loss of biodiversity. And sixth is solid waste disposal. So these are the 6 sections that you need to know. And guys, just from the topics, just from the headings that I've just given you, you can talk forever on each one of that without opening a single textbook. But we need the guideline from the curriculum to guide what of these things do we need to know and what don't we need to know. And that is why I gave you this in this form here. Good. Today's challenge question is not a challenge in terms of intellect. Today's challenge is a challenge in terms of our environmental awareness. So it's not something that may, you know, some people will see this question and say, what's the challenge in that? The challenge is not about your intellect and your intelligence. It's about your attitude. And that is why it's put up there. The question is, describe how water availability may be increased through the recycling of water. In other words, what can you and I do to increase available water to everybody? How? But specifically by recycling this water. How can we help in that way? Good. Now the summary. And I've tried as much as possible to keep in my style of teaching or keeping the summary to pictures. And there were certain places where I couldn't find lovely pictures to put in there, so I had to put in some words as well there. But let's see what we can do. So the first thing that we had to talk about was the greenhouse effect. And there is a natural greenhouse effect. That means when the solar radiation comes into Earth, into the Earth's atmosphere, then there are certain gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane that will absorb some of that heat, and they will keep that heat into the Earth's atmosphere. They say, scientists say, that because of this natural effect, the Earth's atmosphere is plus minus only 33 degrees Celsius warmer than it should have been without that. Imagine how cold it would be then. Imagine on a day when it's 0 degrees. So it would be minus 33. Yo! You think we'll survive with minus 33?
I don't know.
We can't survive. We can't even take 1 degree. It's too much for us. Eh? And people in Britain has minus 5 sometimes. But minus, imagine people, minus 33. Okay? So if that had to happen. However, the human enhanced greenhouse effect is because we are emitting more of those gases than was naturally in the environment. Then more heat is trapped. That means more than this 33 degrees is trapped, and therefore the increase is bigger than the normal. So the normal is there. You can't confuse. The greenhouse effect has always been there. But we are talking about, more importantly for us, is this enhanced greenhouse effect. And this is because of our usage of certain gases or certain substances that emit some gases, especially these greenhouse gases, which we'll talk about just now. Okay? So first of all, where do we get especially the carbon dioxide and methane? Methane, one of the bigger reasons is from the rice paddy fields. The more rice paddy fields we have, the more methane is being given off there because of the decomposition there of the bacteria in that areas. So that's one. Also, carbon dioxide, where do we get it? Mainly, again here, we can talk about fossil fuel production, livestock farming, again methane and carbon dioxide, landfills and waste. Landfills give off a lot of methane. Biomass burning there, rice, we spoke about that, and use of biofuels. All of these things add to the carbon dioxide content and the methane content of the atmosphere, and these are the gases that are leading to the enhanced greenhouse emission. Look at what we are saying here. From the different sectors, what gases are we getting there? The industrial processes, 16.8%. Power stations, this is our big guy, 21.3%. Power stations takes a lot. So every time you're leaving those lights on, the power station is being used more to generate more power. There's more of that being given off there. Land use and biomass burning, residential and other sources, that means from yourself, agricultural byproducts, livestock, there, transportation fuels, all these things here, and waste disposal and treatment, all these different things give rise to those gases that we spoke about. The effects of global warming, obviously, because of this greenhouse effect, the temperature of the Earth gets warmer. We call this global warming. What happens because of this? If it is high, the temperature is higher, then obviously the ice in the glaciers are going to melt. And if that's going to happen, let's see if we can do that. If that's going to happen, then obviously the water levels will increase. And this causes more severe extremes of weather. Extreme drought, extreme flooding, tsunamis, and the rest that we've been so used to, and so on. All these things here now will cause a problem because animals and plants will die and they may become extinct. This will disrupt the entire food chain. I'm not going to go into too much detail there. All right? Look at this story here now. Effects of climate change. If there's warmer days and less cold days and nights, what's the likelihood of that? It's virtually certain. This is again from people that are now saying that this is going to happen. More warm spells and heat waves, very likely. More heavy rain events, very likely. More areas hit by drought, likely. More intense tropical cyclones, likely. So can you see all these extreme events of natural disasters and also these natural phenomena will increase. Look at the effects of global warming on agriculture. Loss of biodiversity because all animals and plants will die and become extinct. Increased frequency of weather extremes, we've spoken that about. Longer growing seasons in cool areas. Increase in incidence of pests and vector-borne diseases. More unpredictable farming conditions in tropical areas because we can't predict what's going to happen because the weather, the climate is all changing. A dramatic change in the distribution and quality of fish and seafoods. So these are the things that will happen because of global warming. This carbon footprint. Look at the story there. Carbon footprint is your footprint in terms of what are you taking out of the environment, your use in the environment. That's what we are talking about. You've got to take all that into account and you can calculate your carbon footprint. Not too much in that. Something I'm missing. I think it's at the bottom. Yeah. 10 tips for reducing your carbon footprint. How can we reduce our carbon footprint? One would be obviously carpooling at least once a week. That means when we are traveling to varsity, so you're going to go to varsity next year, or your dads, your mums going to work, they must share. They mustn't all go together, or use public transport, obviously. Go once a week without using disposable cups given to you at coffee shops. Rather, you have your mug. Instead of going with that, you go with your mug or whatever, and you use it again. And some of the disposable cups, I find it handy. If you take the cup with you, you take it home, you keep it. You use the same cup for your picnics or whatever else that you want to use, so you don't have to throw it away and create waste unnecessarily. Try turning off the lights in an empty room at your house or in your dormitory at the varsity, etc. I spoke about that earlier. Instead of eating lunch on campus, try packing a waste-free, meaning no plastic lunch. Take a lunch tin. Put the stuff in there so you don't have to throw away the waste again. Unplug your computer every night for 1 month if you have a night in a month if you have a computer. Don't continue using it unnecessarily. Use only cold water to do laundry for a month. Try skipping a trip to the store and shop online. Look at that. Instead of going to the shop, you're going to use petrol to go there. You're going to give off emissions and so on. Try reducing your printing a little bit each day. Reduce. You don't have to print everything 1 page at a time. If you can, reduce it. If something's a note, you can put 4 in 1 sometimes and use both sides of the paper. Or use the other side of the paper for printing as well. Cut your shower time. Luni? Or shall we say, you want to do reduce your, when I was young on our bags, it was a famous thing. Save water. Bath with your neighbor's daughter. Now, we're not going to advocate that here now. Please, 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 guys. That's not a good thing because the neighbor will shoot you. Okay, so, but you can cut your shower time. I've always have to say at home, Muhammad, get out of the shower. Enough now. He doesn't listen to me. And he goes on forever. Or you can also reduce the amount of water that you use with the rollout that we're having, with reducing the pressure in the water showers, etc. So that means less water comes out. So when you have your same amount of time shower, you won't waste so much of water. Reduce your bottled water consumption for 7 days. Okay. Ozone depletion, very easy. There are this greenhouse effect is taking place, but more than that, what is happening is that we're having these CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, etc., that are going up into the atmosphere, and they're combining there, and they're breaking down, and this now breaks down the ozone layer. There we have a very simplified. Factories and homes spew out these CFCs into the environment, and the sunlight breaks down the CFCs in the stratosphere, and these breakdown products, the products of the breakdown of CFCs, now destroy ozone and big ozone, and there we have a hole in the ozone layer. With that, Luni, we'll come back after the break.
All right. Mindset is we are going to take a break. Quick congratulations goes out to Murtada Elamam. You have won yourself a Casio calculator from last week's Test Yourself questions competition. My mindset is if you want to enter the competition, all the competition details are on our Facebook page. There is a Test Yourself link there that you click on, and then you just complete everything, fill in all your details, and submit your entry, and you'll stand a chance to be like Murtada Elamam. Let's take a very quick break, and I'll see you straight after this. Welcome back from the break, Mindsetters. Remember, if you have any questions and we don't get through them right at the end of the show, we do have Learn Extra help desks in place for you guys to send your questions, and all the information is on our Facebook page. And remember, the Learn Extra Life Sciences help desk is proudly brought to you by Axel. Aslam.
Hi, Luni. Okay, let's carry on with what we're talking about. Now we come to our big question, big problem that we have in this country, and that is water availability and water quality. Fortunately, in this country, we're one of the few countries where, Luni, yes, believe it or not, talk about Africa, but we are one of the few countries, I've been all over, where we can open a tap, put a glass, and drink the water. In most countries, you have to buy bottled water because the water quality is terrible. So we're still fortunate in that way, but if we don't watch it, we may end up the same way. Okay, so in certain areas, and we need to be careful with what we're doing with water. But the first thing here, understand the difference between water availability and water quality. But the one quality will affect availability. If the water is abundant, Luni, but if it is in a poor condition, it's not available. Even if there's tons of water in front of us, but it's dirty, it's not available. So water quality can affect water availability, okay? So water availability, we are looking at these factors. And I'm not going to read everything here, or rather go into the details of each one. I'm showing you very quickly just the summary, remember that. So the one that we have to look at is the construction of dams. Obviously, construction of dams makes sure that there is water in all areas, because the water from the dam will be pumped through the municipal water into your tap eventually. So to the reservoir, and from the reservoir to your tap. And there will be purification done in all that way. Destruction of wetlands. Now, in your test, your knowledge there, you will find a nice question on wetlands. You will deal with that one there. But if we destroy the wetlands, we destroy two things. One is there will be less water availability and less quality, because wetlands have the ability to maintain the quality of water. They act like a filter on its own. Exotic plantations, or we can say alien plants. Alien plants usually have a higher water need than the indigenous plants. And because of that, they're taking away some of the water. Water wastage, I don't have to tell you. Cost of water, it's no sense if the water is available, but the cost is so high that you and I can't afford it. Then it's not available for everybody. It's only available for the rich in that case. Poor farming practices, needless to say what's the story there. Droughts and floods, boreholes, and its effects on aquifers. First of all, an aquifer is a rock that's beneath the ground that should be porous and permeable. In other words, if it's porous, it's allowing water to seep through, and permeable, it allows water to go past. So what happens is, because there are these aquifers on land, then people can make boreholes to make available water to those who don't have water. But obviously, over time, if we keep using these aquifers will run out of water eventually, and we won't have water in the end. In terms of quality, eutrophication and algal bloom, there's a nice question on that, so I'm not going into the details of that. Thermal pollution is when the factories and the mines reduce hot water into the rivers and the streams. Then the temperature of those rivers and streams will increase. And if they do increase, then the oxygen gets less, and the organisms cannot survive with less oxygen, and they will die. And then if they die, they will decompose. And when they decompose, bacteria would also come and add up to the problems there as well. Domestic use, that means you and I, we are using water, and when we then, our detergent, soap, etc., that goes back into the stream, or from the sewage, the water can get back into the stream. That causes problems. Industry, similar to mines there. Agriculture also, pollution and disease. Mining will also be leading to thermal pollution and heavy metals that are being released into the water that can become poisonous. And we that living in Gauteng, you'd have watched several documentaries of acid mine drainage. Do yourself a favor, do a little research on that and see what we're talking about there in terms of water. Again, look, this alien plants comes up again here. We spoke about alien plants earlier there, and we're talking exotic plantations here, and we're talking about alien plants here. Certain plants that will come into the water, and they form a layer on top of the water so that the lower layers do not get enough sunlight, and that can cause problems for them as well. Food security means that people must have access to food on a daily basis, and quality food on a daily basis. First of all, availability. Reliable and consistent source of quality food. 2 is access. They must be able to have money to buy the food. The food is there. If they can't buy it, there's no sense. 3, utilization. That, in other words, they must be able to use this food that is available. And last, stability. People's ability to access and utilize food that remains stable. It means it mustn't be a situation where today there's food, tomorrow there isn't. It must be stable throughout in terms of that. What are the factors that influence food security? Again, look how all our work is linked to each other. The food security, if there is going to be deforestation, if there's going to be desertification, if there is going to be climate change, if there's going to be droughts and floods, all of these factors will obviously decrease the amount of food that is there. If there's alien plants, they may take over the other plants and so on, or alien animals, they may take over the other animals, so it's going to be less food for humans as well. Loss of natural resources, loss of biodiversity, all of these things here will lead to food insecurity. Global warming leads to loss of biodiversity. It also leads to loss of natural resources and deforestation. And all of this will lead to food insecurity. That means people will not have enough food. I'm hoping that you're getting the picture of the common sense of this topic. Biodiversity, first of all, refers to the richness of varieties of species on Earth. Obviously, a loss of biodiversity means that some of these animals and plants are dying because of all these things that we have been talking about, and because of this, there'll be less variety, and again, it leads to food insecurity. Okay, so the main causes of that is habitat destruction. When we destroy a habitat, either for building a school, a town, a hospital, a train station, it's going to destroy that. Global warming, we've spoken about that already. Over-exploitation, and this is a serious one, where we exploit the organisms. There we talk about elephant tusks, rhino horn, etc., devil's claw, hoodia, African potato, all of these things here, because of over-exploitation, either by overusing it or by poaching, etc., we can cause problems. Pollution definitely will have an effect. The accidents and persecution, when fishermen put in nets in the water and by accident they just trap some fish that they didn't want to catch, they leave it there for days and months sometimes, and the fish eventually rots, so it's not even helping them. And sometimes, like vultures, etc., they seem to be pests and so on, so farmers kill them. Even leopards in parts of Cape, where the farmers are seeing them as a big threat because they're eating their sheep. So they start persecuting them. And again, non-native. Look at the three words we've used. We've used exotic, we've used alien, and here we're using non-native. And that is exactly what these two words mean. Or not indigenous, non-indigenous, okay? So what we are saying is an exotic or alien species is a species that is not local. It doesn't come from the country or the habitat where we're finding it now. And it sometimes has an unfair advantage over the others, and it takes over that. So obviously then the others will die, and therefore it's going to lose biodiversity. And finally, we're talking about solid waste. Solid waste is paper, tin, glass, etc., that we produce on a daily basis because we're drinking water, we're drinking, or we're writing on paper, we're buying crisp and cold drink and all the other things. We're using something there. Those are the solid waste that we throw away. And they end up in a landfill site. Most of it ends up in a landfill site. Landfills are okay, but they produce methane, and that's a problem for a greenhouse. That's one. Other than that, they can cause disease. Just today on the radio 702 and other radio stations, we're hearing about the rodent that has chewed off a baby, 1-year-old baby, 3 fingers. 3 fingers, and the nurse from a nearby hospital says this is a regular thing. So if you're small and you're in those areas, you got to watch, Looney, because the rats are bigger than the small babies sometimes. So it's dangerous because, again, that can be coming from because we are not disposing our waste properly. Not from a landfill site, but because we're just throwing it around, it attracts these organisms. How can we reduce these things? Waste management. First of all, the most important and effective way to reduce is reduce the source or reuse. So that's what I was telling you earlier, those plastic cups and so on. You go to a place where you buy milkshake. That cup, keep it, rinse it, keep it at home. You can use it when you're having a picnic or something like that. So you're not throwing it away, you're not creating more storage there. Right? Recycling or composting them. Use it to make compost heaps. Energy recovery from different cases. Or last Look at the least, look at the spearmint. That is the most preferred. That means you must either reduce or reuse. Thereafter, recycling is the next one. Thereafter, energy recovery somehow. And last is you must be, there is waste, there is going to be some waste at the end. You must be able to treat it and dispose of it easily. Remember, we also have a problem with nuclear waste. We get nuclear waste for example, we use uranium for our power stations, etc. Now, a byproduct from that is nuclear. We need to get rid of that. That nuclear waste is put into large solid containers, and it's buried under the ground. So you can do a little bit on that there as well. Good. That brings us to the questions. The first question is, have we got this on the site? Eh?
The challenge.
Right. It is there.
Yes.
Right. So the question is there. You can read the question. Yes. I'm not going to read the whole story there. The question wants to know, read the extract before answering the questions that follow. Define the term food security. This we spoke about just now, and that's easy. It's when sufficient food is produced to meet the needs of the people on a regular and consistent basis. What does the abbreviation RDP stand for? If you're living in South Africa, you should know that. Reconstruction and Development Program. Name 2 factors that contribute to food insecurity in South Africa. You didn't have to read the article, but they would normally want it from the article, and there are plenty. First of all, shortage of fertile or arable land. That's the first one. Second one, natural disasters, droughts, floods, hailstorms, etc. Lack of mechanization on farms. Monoculture, where the farmers plant the same thing over and over again in the same area. Land tenure and security. Lack of capital by subsistence farmers. Especially the newer guys coming on the block, they don't have enough money. They're starting on a zero basis. It's going to have problems for them. HIV/AIDS, lower life expectancy of farmers and laborers. Lack of subsidy from the government. Inadequate support for agricultural research. Poor infrastructure in deep rural areas. Rural-urban migration leaves land unutilized. I mean, we live in the rural area unutilized, and we're coming into the urban area. More than that, I would also add still wastage. Wastage is a big problem. While people are starving, you and I, we're wasting the food. We go to a restaurant, we hardly finish it, we leave it there. What are they going to do with that? They're going to throw it away. Most cases, they throw it away. I hope they're not going to feed it to the next customer in the restaurant, Luni. I certainly hope not. Okay, so they're going to throw it away. It's wastage. At your own homes, I keep telling my classes and my children as well, every day you have your cereal, you leave some milk in a bowl. If you put that milk together of 3 or 4 kids in the house, it's half a liter of milk every day you're throwing away. Is that really necessary? Name 3 farming practices that compromise food security. That's also easy. We spoke about it in the same thing here. One would be monoculture, planting the same crop in the same area. What happens because of that? That land gets robbed of its material. And when it gets robbed of its material, then what's going to happen? It won't produce that material, and it's not going to help you in the future with that. You'll have to give it time to recover. Overgrazing and the loss of topsoil. That means we're putting lots of animals in a small area, and they're grazing the grass, and with that, we're losing topsoil. And with the topsoil goes the nutrients from the topsoil. Therefore, less vegetation will grow there. The use of fertilizers. This can cause problems into whatever we're using there. And the use of pesticides. Again, the pesticides can get into the food chain, and in that way damage the entire or collapse the entire food chain. The next question says, study the cartoon and answer the questions that follow. So the question is saying here, how Africa deals with food insecurity. And they're telling you here, here's a truck, big word written at GMOs, and big board there that say dump here, and they're giving you the map of Africa. Lovely graphic cartoon there telling you the story there. Okay, so say, what is the cartoon implying regarding GMOs in Africa? Simple. It implies that Africa is using the GMOs to combat food insecurity. Many parts of Africa are left without food. Again, we're moving again. Recently, documentary showing in Ethiopia, they are facing a crisis in terms of food again. So again, we'll have to go back to these things here. briefly discuss the role that genetically modified food could play in ensuring food security in South Africa. Now, the GMO we've spoken about before. What is GMO? When we genetically modify, we alter the genes of the organisms. And how can this help us? First of all, the GMO crops are more resistant to diseases, to pests, to viruses. Most of them, they will be done. Remember, if we are genetically modifying an organism, we are generally doing it to our advantage. So that's what's happening there. It can help to produce more food in a shorter time. Sometimes they have greater nutritional value. They can grow under drought conditions, harsher climates. The tolerance to salty soils, they have a bigger tolerance there. More digestible crops for animals, longer storage life. All of these things make the GMO a little bit more worthwhile to deal with insecurity, food insecurity. Remember, at the same time, there could be disadvantages with that. Genetically, food crops are seen by many as a solution to food insecurity. Tabulate 3 advantages and disadvantages of using genetically modified crops. So the advantages we've already discussed, most of them. I'm not going to read that again. And the disadvantages, first of all, the seeds are developed by few multinational companies who exploit the rest of the world with that. So they have a monopoly over that. And they can charge high prices if they want to. The long-term effects of genetically modified on humans, we don't know. We don't know the long-term effects, the side effects long-term. New seeds have to be planted every year, and this is costly because the genetically modified plants are made in such a way that they cannot reproduce. So every year, the people have to buy the new seeds. So again, it goes back to our story of monopoly there. They're making sure that that's done. Remember, they're spending the money on the research so they can do that. The effects on the environment are also not known. And I think that's about it there. And with that, back to Looney.
All right, Mindset is let's take a very quick break and we'll see you straight after this. Welcome back, Mindsetters, from that break. I hope you guys are still enjoying the show. Aslam?
Hi. Are we still enjoying it? Are you enjoying it?
Yes.
You sure?
Learning about water.
Good.
Conservation.
Good, guys. I'm hoping you're with us. We're moving on with the questions. So study the following table and answer the questions that follow. They're giving you a table here. They're telling you the dam. They're giving you Bloemhof Dam, 1,264, 10 to the 6. That should be 10 to the 6 meter cubed. The river where it's coming from, Orange, and so on and so on and so on. The first question is fairly easy. Name the dam that has the largest capacity from the table above. Come, this is a simple looking at the table and getting the answer. And obviously you can see the largest number is this one here, 5341, 10 to the 6 meter cubed, and therefore it would be Harip. Harip is the largest dam there. Calculate the difference in the capacity of the second largest. Now you needed to know English here. Second largest dam and the smallest dam. Show your working. So you have to look at the table again. Which is the second large? 5,000, 3,000. So it's this one here, 3,171. And the smallest one would be Bloemhof at 1,264. And we simply do a subtraction sum there. And our answer is 1907. And notice here there's 3 marks given. 1 mark would have been given for this process here. Second mark for your answer. And the third mark for your unit. You've got to look at the table or the graph and provide the unit. Remember, in many instances, 1 mark is given for the unit. So even if you got all of this wrong and you got that, imagine out of 3, 1 out of 3 will give you 33.33%. That's a pass. It's already a pass. So you sort it out in that sense. So keep that in mind every time you do these type of questions. The next question, again, the table below shows how the yield of grass varies when different amounts of nitrate fertilizer are added to the crop. So they're giving you there, if there's no nitrates, you're getting 800 kilograms per hectare. and so on and so on. And you can see there's a certain trend taking place in this particular table. So the first one says, give one reason why farmers use fertilizer. That one there is not a serious question. To enrich the soil, or to increase the yield crop, or to let the plants grow better, etc., or to increase productivity. What was the yield? 100 kilograms per hectare. Now here in this question, the unit is given to you. Notice the mark is only 1 because you don't have to give it. But I'm telling you that even if that unit is given, use the unit all the time because you get into the habit of using the unit. So when it was 225 kilograms of nitrate fertilizer. So you've got to go to your story there and read, and your answer is 14. Straightforward. You're reading from the table. 14, or if you multiply it out, 1400 kilograms per hectare. You can even do that, right? Okay, 14 times 100 there, right? Use the table to determine the minimum amount of fertilizer that has to be added to the grass crop in order to get the maximum yield. So we have to look at the table now. Let's see what is the maximum yield. The maximum yield in this particular case is 20. So the minimum that you have to put there would be 650 kilograms per hectare. 650, am I right? 650, not, yeah, per 100, 100 per 100 kilograms. What's the table? Look at the unit. The unit here, you have to alter it to what is on the table. Describe the relationship between the amount of fertilizer added and the yield of grass. Now, most people will say the following, that as the amount of fertilizer is added, then the yield increases. But is that true right through? No, it's not. It increases up to a point there, then it remains constant for a while, and then it starts decreasing. You have to mention that when you are talking about this, because there are specific marks given for your following of the story. So as the fertilizer increases to 650 kilograms per hectare, the yield of grass increases first. That's your first point. Further increase up to 700 cause the yield to remain the same or constant, second point. And your third bullet, with increase beyond 700, there is a decrease in the yield. Can you see that you are following the table? You are saying at this point, that's what happens. Then if I'm telling you, how do you get from here to Carltonville and then to Potch? You can't tell me you go from here, you get on the N1 and you get to Potch. You must out the Carltonville part of it, because I asked you about Carltonville first. You're going to tell me get to that Carltonville first. This is how you get there. From there, you have to get out of the town and get to Potch. So in that way, the same way you must be able to explain that, guys. I'm hoping you're getting the drift there. Explain why fertilizer should not be added to the soil immediately before and during the rainy season. And that's easy also, because if it's going to rain immediately after that, most of the fertilizer will be washed away, and that way we're not going to have any of that. So we're not going to get benefit. At the same time, it leads to pollution of the water and eutrophication or algal bloom in the water. And that's my question I was talking about earlier, about algal bloom. Describe the effect of excessive use of nitrate fertilizers on rivers, dams, and lakes. So the farmers are now putting lots of nitrate. Remember, it doesn't mean that the farmer is using the fertilizer on the river. It means what is the effect of the farmer using this? How does this affect the river or the lakes or the dam? Okay, and it's very simple. Again, what's the step-by-step explanation given here? One is, first of all, we're going to say that it leads to eutrophication or over-enrichment of the water or pollution. What does this do now? Just ignores the P's here, because the P's are ticks that just got converted to P's here. Don't forget that. That happens once in a while. So because of this, eutrophication, what is this eutrophication? We're now explaining it. It's overgrowth of algae. This is known as algal bloom. Now those algae will die because there's overgrowth of them. And because of that, there's decomposition by bacteria. And the bacteria then need oxygen, and therefore the oxygen levels will decrease, and this will cause other plants and animals to die. So firstly, overgrowth of algae. They outcompete each other and many die. Bacteria then decompose them and use up the available oxygen. With that, what happens is that the animals do not have enough oxygen. We can also say that the algal bloom or the algae form a layer on top of the water. And because of that, sunlight does not reach the bottom layers. So plants may also suffer because of that, and they not be able to photosynthesize. Deforestation is the destruction of forests by the removal of trees in large numbers. The table below shows statistics related to deforestation in different regions from the years 1990 to 2000. They're giving you all the statistics there. Which region had the highest rate of deforestation in the 10-year period? You need to look at the table and you will come to this answer, and that would be Africa. Look at the 21.8 there was the cover, and 0.8 was the deforestation rate. The others are all 0.1, 0.2. Calculate the forest cover of Asia indicated as X. That's simple. It's a simple calculation. You're going to put those figures over that one there, 547,793 over that, times 100 over 1, and you're getting this answer there. Remember, in the memo, they would say accept this range here because of your calculation that you're going to do there. List any 2 reasons for deforestation that we've done in our diagram earlier, and that is trees are used for fuel or fire, trees are used for building houses, trees can be used for space. Look at it, building houses is a separate point from space for humans. In other words, if you want to build a town, we get rid of the trees. That's space for humans, etc., or farming or whatever. But building houses, when we're building houses, we're using timber in our ceilings, etc., etc., etc. We also need wood for that. Furniture, we're making furniture, that also is used, and sometimes for medicinal purposes. Describe 2 consequences that deforestation has on the ecosystem. That's also easy. First of all, loss of habitat results in death of organisms and therefore loss of biodiversity. The balance of gases, carbon dioxide, and this is important. Because we're chopping off the trees, there's less trees to use the carbon dioxide that is there, and therefore there will be more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. This can lead to global warming. It will disturb food chain, species migrate, dying out, habitat degradation, which will result in increased soil erosion and reduces fertility of the soil. Explain 3 management strategies now to reduce deforestation. In other words, how would we reduce this problem? That's something is logical as well. First of all, as a government, we need to introduce legislation which will prevent the unwanted or the unreasonable removal of trees. And when we put this legislation in place, we must then impose heavy fines or penalties to discourage the repeated acts of deforestation. Then we must educate. Some of my buddies say that I just love this word educate, and it's important. I feel it is important. Education plays an important role, and that's why I said at the beginning of this session that this section is there not only to give you marks, but it's also to give you discussion, lend discussion to these topics so we can educate each other on how we can improve. And research new technologies to find other material for building, furniture, etc. The question here talks about sewage. Why does this sewage discharge cause the oxygen level to decrease? The sewage contains nutrients that bacteria use, and this in turn is going to use up the oxygen, just like that algal bloom type of story. Why does the minimum amount of oxygen occur some distance below? Because this is where the bacteria have used up all the oxygen in the nutrients in the sewage. Why does the level of dissolved oxygen in the river increase further downstream? Now, the bacteria are no more longer active, so therefore the oxygen levels, they go up again. Simple stories, guys. What 2 possible reasons could there be for sewage being disposed into a river? That's also easy. There is an overflow from overuse of existing systems. The sanitation is not done properly. No new systems are put. Remember, in South Africa especially, the houses are mushrooming everywhere you look. There's more houses. We have such a demand on housing. 1 is because of the urbanization. 2 is people coming from out of the country. And what's happening? Because we need more houses. And that can put a pressure, and this will then, the sewage then gets into the water. Name 1 positive and 1 negative effect that quite heavy pollution could have on the rural. Negative, it causes diseases. Positive, it gives nutrients for crops. Explain 4 management strategies. I'm not going to discuss this one here because we've already discussed it in the last one. It's very similar. One is management strategy to manage solid waste, landfill burning with energy recovery. Then recovery and recycling. Then educate citizens again, reducing waste. These are the main sort of ideas that we're talking about. And it brings us to our challenge question. This was easy, guys. It wasn't a complicated one. How water availability may be increased when we recycle water. Remember, we use water in our houses to shower, to wash our laundry, etc. So what we can do with that? We can reuse or recycle that water, domestic water, to use in our gardens and to wash cars, etc. If we recycle them, or we could just use them in our gardens to water, so that means the water availability increases. And we can also recycle sewage water, and there's a case study on this, where sewage water is being recycled so that there's more drinking water available to people. Luni, any questions for me?
We only have one.
Wow.
Guguletu is asking, can water from underground be finished?
Can water underground be finished?
Yes.
Yes, for sure, my dear. Obviously, as I said earlier, that when we're digging boreholes to take the water from the aquifers underground, then obviously there is only so much of water that is available. And when these waters run dry, then we're going to run out of water. So if we use too much of this, that is why the aquifers, using boreholes with the aquifers, is a potential reduce in the water availability. Firstly, it makes water available to those that don't have it. But because more and more is being used, this can put a pressure on the system, and therefore there will be less water available eventually. No other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, so guys, talking about this whole topic then again now, just to round up, again I'm going to remind you, notice the type of questions that we used. We're looking at the causes of something, the consequence of that. In other words, let's take a simple thing. Causes of loss of biodiversity, the consequences of loss of biodiversity, and how we can fix it. Those are the 3 areas that you need to focus on in all of that we spoke about in the environment. So you need to look at that very carefully, and with that, we'll be able to answer the questions. And also notice that most of the questions that are asked here are data response questions or case studies. So your reading ability of a table, showing relationships, and investigation questions are very popular in this section. With that, I give it to Luni, and I wish you well for your trial exams.
Thank you so much, Aslam, for the great lesson. Mindsetters at home, thank you for tuning in. Remember, if you have more questions that you'd like to ask, send them through the Learn Extra Help Desk, and the Learn Extra Life Sciences Help Desk is proudly brought to you by Excel. We have all the information for our help desk on our Facebook page, and as Aslam said, we're wishing you everything of the best for your prelims and your finals, and we're working together with you.
And don't forget Aslam.
And don't forget Aslam when you're writing your paper. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. We love you. Goodbye. Hello, great souls. Welcome to your life sciences lesson on a Wednesday. I am Luni, and with me is Aslam.
Awesome.
Without the entourage today, without your peoples. Where are your peoples?
Now, what I'm going to do? Who's going to answer for me?
Who's going to answer your question?
You will have to answer.
No.
It's your turn today.
What are we doing for the great souls today?
Today we're doing human impact on the environment. That means what you are doing to the environment, what I'm doing from the environment, and what all those learners out there are doing to the environment.
All right. right, mindsetters, I hope you guys are excited for your lesson. I'll post all the information that you need for today's lesson, your show notes, and the competition details on our Facebook page. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/learnextra. Our Twitter handle is @learnextra, and you can get all the show notes, the videos, and the schedules on learn.mindset.co.za. And if you want to win yourself an awesome Cassie calculator, all you need to do is go to the Facebook page. There's a Taste Yourself link there. You click on the link, complete all the answers, you submit your entry, and you'll stand a chance to win a Cassie calculator. We also have another competition. We want you to get connected. And the man himself is here, so I can now...
Important that we do it together again so that you know what is going on. But at the same time, having said that, this section I just explained to some learners that I had yesterday, that this section lends itself to so much of common sense and logic and so much of current affairs that we see every day in every newspaper or on TV news, etc., regularly. So it's something that you should be at this age, in this year, especially in this era, you should be conversant about it. So don't panic that even if you haven't done it in school, because it's something easy that you can read. I'm going to try and show you the easiest way to put this little the sections, as we've been done in others, put it into packets. So what do we actually need to know? We need to know in terms of the first part, and I'm going to break that up into the first part as well. Let's see how far we go. All right, from here, all of this, all of that, going down, all right up to down, yeah, it's quite a bit, all right up to there, right? So up to that bullet, all of that is dealing with the atmosphere and climate change. What is happening to the climate? Why is the climate changing? How is it changing? And so on. And what are those things that we are talking about? We are talking about the greenhouse effect as one of those climate change stories there, and the atmosphere. We're talking about the sources of carbon dioxide emissions and methane emissions, which lead to this greenhouse effect. Also, we must keep in mind the difference between the natural greenhouse effect and the enhanced greenhouse effect. We'll talk about that a little later. Also, deforestation and how that leads to more carbon dioxide in the environment. There's the enhanced greenhouse effect we're talking about. How does that greenhouse effect now and the greenhouse gases lead to this condition that we call global warming? Okay? Notice everything is dealing with the atmosphere and climate change. And how global warming now, notice we're saying we started with the greenhouse gases. From there we went to global warming. From there,
make an example because you are here.
Ah.
So I want you to vote for your favorite teachers, guys. And obviously, we love Aslam, so we're going to vote for Aslam. All the information for the Get Connected competition is on our Facebook page. All you need to do is go to the link that sends you to Curio. Then you enter Learn. You pick your favorite teacher, Aslam. Then you go back to the Facebook page. There are links there with all your favorite teachers. Then you go to /Aslam. That link will take you to Aslam's picture, and then you like that picture. Once you've done that, you go back to the competition graphic, and then you share that post to all your friends and tell them to enter the competition. All those people who've shared the competition graphic will stand a chance to win Vodacom airtime. And then all those people who've liked Aslam's picture, and Aslam's going to get the most likes because he's our favorite teacher, will stand a chance to win a Sony Xperia L. I was just going
Xperia,
Aslam. Yes.
Hey?
Awesome phone, hey?
Awesome phone, awesome
Yes.
phone.
Lesson.
All to me.
Thank you.
Good, guys. You better post that link quickly, guys. We're talking about environment, and this is something that you've done last year. Now, in some schools, teacher may tell you, you know what, guys, we did this last year, or your teacher did this last year, so you'd read it on your own. And we're talking about how global warming leads to desertification, drought, and floods. Also, what do we mean by our carbon footprint? And how you and I, Looney, and the rest of us all can reduce our carbon footprint on this planet. Last but not least, display the causes and consequences of ozone depletion, and again, how you and I can decrease that. This section has emphasis in grade 11 and 12 for the simple reason, guys, is to educate ourselves of the importance of these things so that we can start living better. When I say living better, I mean living so that our lifestyles leads to sustainable use of natural resources. Good. Thereafter, now look, that was the first part. So atmosphere and climate change. The next part deals with water. Up to yeah, all of that. So one is we're talking about the availability of water. Secondly, we're talking about water quality. Thirdly, how